Bounce back time for the Nittany Lions, and it's Ohio State.
Who's your next opponent? That's the only reference they should make to Indiana this week when you say the Hoosiers. You got to move forward because you got the Buckeyes coming to town.
And it's week 2, and it feels like a must-win for Penn State. Blue White Tailgate is next.
It's the Blue White Tailgate Show presented by Blaze Alexander. Great to have you with us. Steve Jones, Todd Sadowski, Jay Paterno. Great to have you with us. Frustration reigns in Nittany Nation, Jay, after that game on Saturday.
I've moved on.
All right, there you go. That's the attitude.
You know what? You win the rest, you win the Big Ten East. So, I mean, you just got to go to Ohio State, play that game, and correct the mistakes and get going.
I think the frustration is really because it was preventable. I mean, you know, they talk to the players all the time about making winning plays, and then they didn't make all the winning decisions at the end of the game to help get that win when they had made enough winning plays to get it. So I think that's where a lot of the frustration lies. But you're right, it's time to move on to Ohio State. That's in the past. They got to get this one.
And talk about an aberration. This is the definition of it. Under James Franklin, now in his 7th season, Penn State's never had a game with 10 penalties, 3 turnovers, and 2 missed field goals. And he'll tell you, mistakes really hurt them.
We did not play well in really 6 years at Penn State and 10 years of being a head football coach. We have not been a team to get penalties, and we have not been a team to get turnovers. And tonight we had both.
And completely uncharacteristic. That just isn't how they play.
Yeah, you know, it doesn't matter how long you play. You're going to have a game like that.
No doubt.
And the great teams find a way to win those ones. And the teams that aren't quite there, and is Penn State a great team yet? We're going to find out this week.
Yeah. All right, so let's go to the update desk. A lot on Jesse Arnell coming up with Kenny Schierlinger. Kenny, what do you have?
And Steve, following Penn State's loss to Indiana last Saturday, the Nittany Lions check in at the 18th spot in the AP poll. On the other side of the ball, the Ohio State Buckeyes check in at the 3rd spot, marking the 4th straight year these two teams will face off as ranked opponents. Ohio State has won the last 3 meetings, including a 28-18 victory in Columbus last season. The other 2 Buckeye wins were 1-point games in 2017 and 2018. Penn State's last win against the Buckeyes was in 2016 at Beaver Stadium. It was clinched by Penn State's famous block kick 6. As we take a look into Lions in the lead, Chris Godwin had 9 receptions for 88 yards and a touchdown for the Buccaneers in their win on Sunday. And Monday nights, Chicago got a nice performance from Allen Robinson. He had 4 catches for 70 yards. And some unfortunate news in the Penn State community as Jesse Arnell, the former Nittany Lion basketball star and football star, passed away at age 86 last week. Arnell was elected in 1954 as Penn State University's first black student body president as a junior and led the Nittany Lions to 3 NCAA tournament appearances, including a 1954 Final Four. In 1969, Arnell became the first black individual elected to Penn State University's Board of Trustees and served for more than 45 years on the board. Our thoughts and prayers go out to Jesse Arnell's family and friends. Steve?
Yeah, quiet, powerful voice for many years at Penn State.
No question, and a guy who was a really driving force
yes.
for a lot of change at this university in a very, very positive way.
No question. All right, let's get to the Penn State-Ohio State series over the years. As we mentioned earlier, the last 4 years have determined the Big Ten champion. You can see how it's played out over the years. And they played some epic games, Todd. Epic games.
Entertainment value off the charts. I've been on the sidelines for the end of both games in Columbus. They weren't the endings that the teams were looking for. But, you know, Saquon Barkley running the opening kickoff back and just the white, it's a shame the whiteout crowd is not there because the crowds are such a big part of what these games have become, always the night atmosphere and all that. But the football's been second to none as far as the entertainment value. Penn State just hasn't been able to get to secure that win in the last couple of years, Jay.
Yeah, no question. And epic games, having had to be in the booth on a headset calling games during some of those epic games. I wouldn't say epic, but hair-raising, no question about it. But you know what? These are 2 proud programs with 2 great traditions, 2 great fan bases. And when they match up, there's a lot of pride involved. So you're going to get the best effort out of both teams.
No question. And Pat Fryermuth really echoes that. He talks about the backyard rivalry.
This whole camp and everything, it goes back to the love of the love of the game of football. Just kind of, playing in your backyard again. And it's going to be weird without the fans, and I'm going to definitely miss the whiteout. But, I'm excited to play against Ohio State. It was kind of just Ohio State versus Penn State, no outside noise, no nothing, and just kind of put the football down and play.
And that's the bottom line. No fans. Penn State just experienced this on the road at Indiana. Ohio State's going to come in here. They don't have to worry about hand signals. They don't have to worry about silent counts, any of that. They just have to play.
And it's interesting because Urban Meyer, has always talked about the whiteout being such an incredible advantage for Penn State. Usually it's 3 points. Okay, home advantage. He was talking to us upwards of 7 points at least to have that whiteout crowd as far as an advantage.
Yeah, nobody has a hashtag 1,538 strong, which is the actual number of tickets that we distribute because it's based on 4 for each player and the whole 9 yards. We just found that out last Monday night on a board. The trustees call it, so 1,538 strong.
Wow.
They better be loud.
Coming up, we'll take a look at Ohio State as the Blue White Tailgate presented by Blaze Alexander continues after this. Welcome back to the Blue White Tailgate presented by Blaze Alexander. Great to have you with us. Now let's talk about Ohio State. Ryan Day is only, 17-1? They go from Urban Meyer, where obviously he's taken the base of that team and he's continued to push it forward, but he's done a good job with them.
No question. Ohio State has really put, when you talk about the Big Ten East, you look at the Big Three, everybody talks about Ohio State, Michigan State. They're 15-1. Since Urban Meyer got there against Penn State and Michigan. So that tells you the separation they've got. Historically, guys, the numbers and the wins, the percentages, it's just, it's unfathomable, right? You never guess somebody would do that. What Urban Meyer did, what level that he took them to as far as a winning percentage. And then just hands it off to Ryan Day and continues like nothing happened.
It seems like they're in that great pack because Larry Coker was like this when he took over early at Miami, and then suddenly things went south. So let's just see how it plays out over the next 3 to 4 years. It looks like they've recruited well, and but that's something just to keep in mind.
Let's hope the slide starts this Saturday.
Yeah, it may start Saturday night. James Franklin says in order for that slide to start Saturday night, they'll have to gain some control over this Ohio State offense.
You look at what they've been able to do offensively with Justin Fields, and what they are able to do against Nebraska. They are dynamic at the wide receiver position. They are big and physical on the offensive line. They always seem to have at least 1 or 2 running backs that can hurt you.
He hit his first 17 passes on Saturday.
That's all.
Then he made a gigantic mistake. And then completed everything after that. He was 20 of 21 when it was all said and done. Obviously, last year against Penn State, he threw the ball well. But I felt, guys, he really hurt Penn State with his legs. Todd, you were there.
Yeah, the guy's multi-talented, and he's got everything that you would want. That's why Penn State recruited him in the first place and wanted him to come to Happy Valley. And there's things that you can't create or teach, and that's the poise when it comes to games that are big games, when you need a big drive, when you need to deliver in the clutch. He seems to have that as well when they need to. And Coach Franklin was talking about being able to compete with the Ohio States and on the national level. Your offense has to be at a certain level where you just can outscore someone if your defense can't stop the other team. And Ohio State always seems to be able to score as many points as they need, no matter what kind of game they're in, to win the game.
And they have 2 dynamic wideouts. One in particular, Chris Olave, I think is just a dynamic player. Garrett Wilson's really good, so he's got great targets to throw to.
It's a really deep group of wide receivers, no question about it. And if you look at, I'm going to take away Olave, there are 4 other guys that can make plays, as evidenced by the touchdown in the back. It's a really talented group. They catch the ball really well. The one incompletion went through a guy's hands. Other than that, you look at a group of people that can hurt you.
To me, that's one of the big matchups in this one, guys, is that I felt Penn State's corners, Tariq Castro-Fields, Joey Porter Jr., Marquise Wilson, held up really well in that game and played well. I think that's a great matchup in this game.
Well, we talk about separation on both sides of the ball, right? Can the wide receivers separate from their defenders and get going? And you're right. I thought they did a great job, too. It's going to go next level, obviously, with the talent that they're going to be facing this week with Ohio State, but they seem ready for the challenge.
Honestly, as Jack Ham and I watched the game in the box before we had to do our job, It looked like Ohio State struggled for a while running the ball, Jay.
Yeah, I don't think they're as good as running back as they've been in the past. I think that's going to be a real question for them going forward. I think if they're going to rely on Justin Fields carrying the ball 20 times a game the rest of the year, that could be a problem for them. And I think that, they're going to try and find that run game. And I think, I'm not sold yet. It's only one game sample size, but I'm not sold Ohio State is that dominant team everybody thinks they are because they're so young and inexperienced in some places.
So then let's flip it to the defensive side. There's no Chase Young this time.
Thank God.
Yeah, tell me about it. In fact, I was one of the
No one's happier than Sean Clifford.
Is there another Bosa, too? Is there someone, did they slide a Bosa in there anywhere?
Okay, after all the draft declarations were made, I felt like texting each one saying thank you.
Thank you. Give them a thank you card.
But what do you think about the Ohio State defense? I mean, was it a reload?
I think it's a work in progress. I think at times they struggle to get pass rush on Nebraska, which has not been an issue in the past. Now Nebraska's offensive line's pretty good, but I think we'll find out how good they are in the secondary because again they've got some losses there and they're young.
Yeah, and that's one of the things you're going to get into in the film room is the one high safety.
Yep.
A lot of people play 2D, cover 3, things like that. They play the one high a lot with 3 corners, so you're going to get into that in the film room.
Yeah.
All right, coming up, we're going to talk with Todd Blackledge, get his view on how things are going so far as we continue with Blue White Tailgate presented by Blaze Alexander after this. And we welcome everyone back to Blue White Tailgate presented by our good friends at Blaze Alexander and joined by one of the all-time greats at Penn State and one of the top broadcasters in the industry, Todd Blackledge. Todd, welcome. It's great to have you with us.
Well, it's good to be with you guys.
All right. So there have been a lot of predominant themes so far, but there's also been a lot of different scores that we've seen, a lot of points being put up. Why have we seen so many points put up this early at this stage of the season, in your opinion?
Well, it's kind of interesting because it's kind of been both. I think early on we saw some games where it seemed like the defenses were a little bit ahead of the offenses, and then some other games where that's not been the case. And I think particularly when you have some quarterbacks that are veteran guys that have had game experience and are talented, obviously, when you talk about a guy like Trevor Lawrence in particular or Justin Fields, as we saw last week, Sean Clifford even in the Penn State game, guys that have talent at that position and good skill people. You've seen some of these offenses really take off. I've got Alabama again this week. This will be my 3rd time covering Alabama in this short season already. And, their skill people are ridiculous. And their quarterback, Mac Jones, is playing way better than anybody expected. So I think it's kind of been a combination of things, but having the right guy at quarterback, I think, is the key to all that.
Hey, Todd, first of all, get your hat off in the building. You're inside. Second of all, your first year really starting at the end of the year. You played Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl and fell behind early. If Penn State finds himself getting behind early, what are the kind of things that you did as a quarterback that enabled you to kind of overcome those things? And talk about what this game means to a Penn State alum living in Ohio as well.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's a very tall task that they have in front of them. They've got themselves backed in the corner a little bit, but they're a very talented football team. And obviously, unfortunately for them, just too many mistakes in that first game. And, you can't miss 3 field goals and have turnovers on the road and let a team kind of be around and fight their way back in the game. And, so that's behind them now. Now they've got a really talented Ohio State team coming in. You don't have the luxury or the benefit of the whiteout and the huge home crowd that was always, kind of to your advantage. But I do think Penn State is a talented football team, and they've got to come out and have some success early. And I think, they've got to get a little more consistency in their running game, and so that they're balanced, so that they don't have to depend on their quarterback to necessarily be their leading rusher again in this football game. And then, hope they can make it a 4-quarter game, and if you make it a 4-quarter game, then the pressure maybe falls a little bit more on Ohio State and you see if you can slug it out and find a way to win in the 4th quarter. But, for me being in Ohio, obviously this is Buckeye country. It's a little bit tough being outnumbered, being a Penn State guy where I live, but hey, I'm proud to be a Penn State guy, and I'll be cheering from afar and pulling for him in this game. But a difficult task for sure.
Todd, defensively, Penn State was looking for a lot of improvement out of their secondary. They got some young corners, some young guys in the safety department, and then they got a great edge pass rush. Do they have enough to make Justin Fields really uncomfortable, and then to hold the receivers just for a second or two to make sure that just to make him uncomfortable? You think they have enough to do that?
Well, I don't know. I've not studied them enough. I mean, obviously they need to have that. You can't allow a guy like Justin Fields to be comfortable for a whole game. What is he, 20 of 21 the first game? You can't allow him to be comfortable. And, you can affect a quarterback and make him uncomfortable without necessarily sacking him. You can hit him, you can put him on the ground some, you can hurry him, you can make him pull the ball down. So all those different kind of things. And it's a combination of disguising and changing your coverages and creating pressure, to kind of not allow him to be comfortable for long stretches of time, because he's too talented if you do that. And their wide receivers are too talented. So, I think that you'll see, most teams make a lot of improvement, especially good teams from week 1 to week 2. I think some of the mistakes that were made in Bloomington will get corrected, and hopefully, hopefully it'll be a great showing against Ohio State.
Todd, what's it been like for Sean McDonough and yourself going stadium to stadium, having a few fans in there? What's that been like to deal with compared to what we normally see in stadiums and the big games that you do?
Yeah, it's been really unusual. The first game we did all year, we did Clemson at Wake Forest, and there was nobody there. I mean, it was like 50 people were all they would allow in the state of North Carolina to gather at that point. It was a very strange. You had the artificial crowd noise. And then just all the protocols that are in place, both from the teams and from ESPN in terms of our travel. And, everybody has to drive their own car to the stadium. And we have to have all of our meetings with coaches and players by Zoom. I haven't been to a practice. I haven't been in a football facility all season. But I've told people all along, I'll take different over nothing any day of the week. I'm thankful to be working.
Yep.
I'm part of one of maybe 4 crews at ESPN that are actually going out and doing games. Kirk and Chris will be there in State College this weekend. They're also going out every week. But a lot of our crews are doing it either from their homes or from a studio in Bristol or Charlotte. So I'm very thankful to still be going out to doing games. And, it's amazing. We haven't had full crowds, but it's an amazing how much difference 15 or 20,000 people make compared to 50 or 100. So it's once the game starts, it's felt the same, and it's been exciting. And we've had, other than last week, we had kind of a blowout, but 3 weeks before that, we had games that were right down to the wire, decided in the fourth quarter, and it just felt like any other year of doing college football.
Todd, always a pleasure. Great respect for your work as always. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Good to be with you guys.
We'll come back with more of Blue White Tailgate, presented by Blaze Alexander, after this. All right, welcome back to Blue White Tailgate, presented by our good friends at Blaze Alexander. All right, so let's get to it. We're going to see, let's start with Dr. Jekyll. Right? Here's Dr. Jekyll. Not good. We talked about this earlier. Now, one's a 57-yarder by Stout. I don't really count that.
Which he almost made.
Right.
He made a pretty good run at it.
Right, he made a good run at it, okay? Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at Mr. Hyde. And when you look at Mr. Hyde, now get this. This is James Franklin in his career at Penn State has had 28 games with 450 yards or better, and the opponents held to under 220. That's the first one he's ever lost.
Yeah, he shouldn't lose many of those.
Okay? And a lot of this, Todd, let's face it, offensive success in Jekyll and Hyde is Sean Clifford.
Yeah, and look, Sean Clifford will be the first to tell you he's working hard to get to the Joe Burrow level, to get to the Justin Fields level. Look, Penn State wants to be that type of program that can have that national championship success, college football playoff success. So I'll also be the first to tell you, against Indiana, he simply wasn't good enough.
No, I don't want anyone else taking this loss. Like, this one was on me. That first half, 2 turnovers, unacceptable. both completely on me. And I just feel like I definitely could have played better.
As a captain and second-year starting quarterback, Sean Clifford does exactly what he should do after the game. He lays the blame squarely on his shoulders. He's accountable for his actions. Those actions on the field against Indiana are the issue. His second interception led to a 4-yard touchdown drive for the Hoosiers. And as the QB, you have to be aware of every situation and be the conduit from the coach to the offensive players.
You know, Devin, on the last play, we talk about situations all the time, different situations. What we always say is one play can't lose the game, but one play can always win the game. So it starts with me.
Clifford showed flashes of brilliance. He can make all the throws across his body with some zip, keeps his eyes downfield, and delivers a strike to Jahan Dotson for what should have been the winning score. And his earlier touchdown run was, dare I say, exquisite. Against Indiana, at least, this was not a splash play offense. Drives were longer and ate up more clock. Fewer possessions in a ball game demands fewer mistakes, so they can cash in with points. Now Clifford's job is to set an example and let go of the Indiana setback so the Nittany Lions can concentrate on the task at hand, beating the Buckeyes.
Just bounce back. So, when your back's against the wall, how do you respond? Our season's still in front of us. One loss won't define us.
Saying the right things, did the right things down the stretch. He led the team to touchdown drives when he needed to. But he's compared against the best quarterbacks in the country when you quarterback Penn State. Graham Mertz was 20 of 21. Justin Fields was 20 of 21. And in the first half, Sean Clifford's throwing a couple of interceptions that cost the team points. It's just that's the way it goes, guys. And he knows he has to step up his level of play, and it has to start this weekend.
He's capable of it.
Oh, obviously he's shown that over the course of an entire season. So I don't think it's time to hit any panic buttons or pull the ripcord. But I mean, he like I said, he's the first to tell you he needs to do better.
All right, so our player of the week, by the way, on offense is Pat Freiermuth. Freiermuth set the Penn State record for touchdown catches a career by a tight end on this pop pass right here. One of his 7 catches in the ball game for 60 yards. That was on a 13-play, 64-yard drive to open the game for Penn State, ate up 7 minutes. You can see the blocking of the outside by George and Dotson, outstanding on a play like that. I mean, you have to commit to doing things like that, and they did.
Yeah, and that's going to be important this Saturday.
No question. All right, tail of the tape, brought to you by our great friends at CP Vets. And here it is, dramatic. I love when they bring that in, CP Vets. All right. You can see right there what each team has done in the opening game of the season. What was interesting, though, to me is look at that right-hand side, that 217 rushing by Nebraska. That's interesting.
Well, first drive, they had a couple of big runs, and the quarterback run game was a problem for them. We'll talk about that in the film room, and it was last year against Penn State as well.
I think it's going to be interesting that we catch Ohio State early in the season, right? In game number 2, where both teams are still trying to figure yourself out a little bit. And so maybe that plays to an advantage with so many new people and ask for big things at Ohio State. It might be a good time to catch them.
What's your thought, Todd, on the offensive line for Penn State against the defensive front for Ohio State, which in the last couple of years, that defensive front has made some big plays?
Well, it certainly has evened out a little bit this year, you like to think. And, they had a lot of plays where they had 6 offensive linemen on the field for Penn State. So they like their group. They like their group a lot. And, the offense was more, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, so to speak. It's at least 3 plays to get the first down for Penn State, and they control time of possession. It'll be interesting if they can do that against Ohio State, because that is not something that they've been able to do in the past few years.
What about the secondary for Ohio State? We know Shaun Wade's a high draft pick. What did you think of them?
I think they're very young. I think it's going to be a good test for them. It's going to be a good test for Penn State's wide receivers, as well as for the Penn State in terms of Ohio State secondary. But Wade is a guy that obviously don't throw at him.
Big time player.
Pick on the other guys.
Know where he's at on the field.
Know where he's at and pick on the other guys and see if you can get see how Freiermuth matches up with their linebackers and see if you can work some things there.
Something's interesting, and Todd mentioned it during the course of the Sean Clifford package that he just ran about the lack of big plays. Penn State had 4 explosive plays in the game. One was a kickoff return. Pat Freiermuth says they need more of those.
We got to work this week to, be able to make those big time plays and big time moments. And I think, this is the great opportunity to do that against, the number 3 team in the country or 4 or whatever. And in prime time, I think that's a it's a great opportunity for us to showcase what we can do in the whole offense.
And Todd, you can't leave points on the field.
No, absolutely. I mean, look, they missed the field goal. Obviously, the defense got it back for Paterno to miss a short one. But, it's even small plays or small things, like they're 3rd and 24, okay, at the 30. And Daniel George, he throws it just a little behind. He doesn't catch it. If he gets 15 yards, that's a much easier kick for Jake Penninger, right, to get that. So those are 3 points that they keep missing out on.
We'll come back, look at the defense after this. Welcome back to the Blue White Tailgate presented by Blaze Alexander. Defense was put in some tough spots on Saturday against Indiana. Let's get right now to the drive of the week, though, presented by our great friends, the Sign Stop. All right, so here's Indiana. Now, on this drive, Devin Fort tries to stop like Ahmad Bradshaw in the Super Bowl, and Todd Gurley, he couldn't. Indiana never had a 3rd down to deal with in this drive. There's Whop Phillier with a catch. Now Penix again is going to work the near sideline again. This is the one clear pass he had to Miles Marshall. Everything else, look at the tight windows he's throwing into. Look how tight that is. Castro Fields can't cover Hewitt any better than that. And then here it is finally getting it home. And
the 2-point conversion.
That was a 2-point conversion,
right
yeah.
There's
right there. It seemed to happen in slow motion. So I felt like not having Jesse Luketa hurt. And they went to overtime, and of course we know what happened after that. Shaka Toney, by the way, is our defensive player of the week. Shaka had 7 tackles in this game. Shaka had 2 sacks, which of course equals the 2 tackles for loss. He just, again, Jay plays like a senior.
Yeah, and that offensive tackle looked like he'd had enough on those 2 plays. So even I'm rooting for Penn State. I'm sitting home going, somebody help that young man out, please.
Yeah, he's just running for his life as they go through. Yeah. And they were able to get pressure. They're going to need to get pressure on Justin Fields this week.
Yeah, I believe it's one of the big parts of the game that's, they're going to have to take advantage. We were talking to Todd Blackledge about, getting Justin Fields uncomfortable and, how do you do that? Well, you got to get in his face. As he said, you don't necessarily have to sack him, but you better get in his face. And Shaka Toney and Jason Oweh and the guys are capable of doing it.
You mentioned comfort there, Todd. Joey Porter Jr. made his first career start for Penn State, and he looked comfortable. Kenny Schierlinger takes a closer look.
And Steve, football fans all across the state of Pennsylvania know the name Joey Porter, probably more specifically on the western side of the state, but there's a new Joey Porter in town. Joey Porter Jr., the redshirt freshman quarterback for Penn State, played well this past weekend for Penn State against Indiana and showed why the coaching staff here at Penn State are so high on the redshirt freshman.
Number one thing that Joey brought this year was consistency. Each day in practice, he showed up and he guarded who we think are our best receivers here at Penn State and did a great job.
Outside of Joey's growth at the position, one of the most exciting things for defensive coordinator Brent Pry is his physical attributes.
I love what Joey Porter's doing. There won't be a longer guy in the league that can move like he does.
Joey Porter came out of his first start as a Penn State Nittany Lion as one of the top defensive performers against the Hoosiers, tallying 5 solo tackles, 1 sack, and a pass breakup. And Joey didn't hide his excitement for getting his first career sack at Penn State.
It felt good. I'm not even going to lie. My dad did it a lot. So when I had the chance, I don't know if I wanted to do his celebration or not. I was thinking I had a plan all week, and I didn't do it. I was too hyped to even do it. But, if it happens again, I'm going to do the celebration. But I was happy. It was a fun moment for me.
And I'm sure the Penn State faithful would love to see that new sack celebration Joey Porter Jr. has planned on primetime against the Ohio State Buckeyes. Steve?
All right, Kenny, you look at that. Joey Porter Jr., Marquise Wilson, Keaton Ellis, Daquan Harding. It looks like they went 4 for 4 in that spot in that recruiting class.
Well, let me just say this. As long as that sack celebration doesn't cost the team 15 yards, then okay. But, I mean, if it's 3rd down and 10 and you make a sack and it's an automatic 1st down, then no.
My favorite picture of Kenny's package was Joey Porter Sr. in the Penn State uniform. I love it. They look great wearing the blue.
Yeah. So let's get to the tail of the tape presented by our good friends at CP Vets. Here's a look at how it stacks up between Penn State and Ohio State on the 52 points. All right.
Kind of a small sample size.
Did anybody reach out to you guys excited about Nebraska scoring early on Ohio State? Oh, look at Ohio State start. Then they up with 52 points and all the numbers that we just saw, Steve.
Incredible numbers across the board. Penn State only gave up 210 in the game against Indiana, but we all know how it turned out. All right, no Jesse Luketa to start the game. It's a rule. It's the first half thing of the rule I don't like. The penalty call's correct. I mean, there's no getting around it. But there's a stabilizer, in my opinion, on a defense. We're always looking for a rudder. I've always felt like Luketa was a rudder guy.
Well, I thought until he got knocked out, I thought he was having the best day of the linebackers. Again, I didn't grade the film as intensely as the coaches do, but he'll be missed on Saturday in the first half.
It's just another reason why you want Penn State to just hang in this game, right, in the first half, because then Jesse Luketa, with fresh legs, comes out in the second half ready to go. Motivated.
Todd,
you know that.
Todd, a couple times you mentioned tackling. Antonio Shelton's with you. Tackling is going to be a big part of Penn State's success Saturday night.
Once Justin gets going, he can make plays happen. He can extend plays. So when we get close, when you're close to making a play, you have to make it. You got to get him on the ground.
You have to, and that was the problem last year because Penn State did a great job on first and second down last year against Ohio State, and then on third down, all of a sudden he'd break contain and get out and he'd run, and I thought that was the swing part of the game.
Well, I think the last couple of years, Penn State has done a good job of not giving Ohio State the big play in the pass game, the play action stuff. They sat on some of the short routes too. So he was never comfortable with his receivers running free. If that happens this year, they're going to have to make sure they tackle just in the open field.
Always much easier said than done, right, for the guy.
Sure,
and that's that's always the case. That's what makes him special is that they just keep the chains moving on third down. If you need 8, he gets you 9 or 10, whether it's through the air or with his legs. It's just the ultimate frustration for a defensive lineman, especially when you go after him, you think you got him, he slides through, and then boom, the chains are moving, and you got another fresh set of downs you got to defend.
And they have a nice stable of wide receivers because the 2 freshmen, including Fleming here from Pennsylvania, really good. Jackson Smith, really good. And then, of course, Wilson led them with 7. Olave is terrific.
No question. It's a great group. And as it goes to Fields, get Fields to cough it up a couple times like you did last year that got you back in the game.
Yes.
And that's going to be vital.
All right, still to come on the show, of course, the world-famous G Block with the good, the bad, and the ugly. Up next, Jay is in the film room with Kenny as we continue with Blue White Tailgate after this.
Welcome into the film room here with Jay Paterno. Jay, it's Ohio State, Penn State. It's always a fun one on the calendar. So just starting with this offense for Ohio State. What does Penn State need to do to stop them?
Well, a lot of things. But let's start out with what Ohio State wants to do on offense is they want to run the football, and they want to get north and south and get big plays that way. Let's talk a little bit about how we're going to do that. Penn State is going to try and create a lot of penetration up front, force those running backs to go east and west. Don't know if they have that great running back yet on their team. So let's take a look at the video and take a look at the penetration by Penn State's defensive line and the force brought by the linebackers, gets in the backfield, forces them to go east and west and not north and south, and then creates turnovers, which is going to be really, really important for this team. Now, to do that, you want to put people around the ball. But when you put people around the ball and you get the man-to-man, you're going to end up with situations where your safety is going to be one-on-one with the slot in your base defense to stop the run. Let's take a look at the video here. Last year, Penn State gets their safety matched up with Ohio State's one of their best wideouts in the slot, and they run the slot fade, and that becomes a problem for Penn State. And that's a matchup that Ohio State wants to really take advantage of. You can see it right here from the end zone shot as well. The safety can have to help, but again, once that safety starts to help, they take themselves out of the run game. One of the things you also have to be aware of when you do that is their quarterback, Justin Fields, is an absolute threat in the run game on key situations. Here's a 4th and 5 from last year. 5 guys in the box, 5 blockers to take care of it. Take a look at how that works out for Penn State. With all the man-to-man they want to play, show the video on this one, and you'll see Penn State's playing man-to-man. When those defenders play those receivers man-to-man, and you block the 5 guys with those guys, Now your quarterback is running free and getting into the secondary and making first downs. The other thing Ohio State wants to do with their offense is they like the short passing game, they like the crossing routes, and it's going to come down to one-on-one tackling. When they get people spread out like this, all of a sudden now that guy's on an island, that guy's on an island. You got a bunch of guys on islands that have to make tackles and then keep them from getting the big play. They spread the field. So let's take a look at this one on the video here. Again, nothing real challenging. A throw, I can still make at my advanced stage, but it's what happens after it. Missed tackles, guys making plays, getting extra yardage. Those hidden yards are going to be critical in trying to stop the Ohio State offense.
Now, on the offensive side of the ball, you saw Penn State show flashes of what they can do. They have a couple guys out, as everybody knows, but what do they need to do against the Buckeyes and that tough defense?
Well, they're going to have to take advantage of Ohio State's scheme. And when you look at Ohio State's scheme, it's different in that they're going to play with 3 cornerbacks. Okay, most people have 2 safeties and 2 corners. They play with 3 corners, so they get a corner on your slot receiver. And that makes it difficult in terms of the matchups that you get. You don't get that mismatch in the slot. What it does, though, is it puts a linebacker, number 20, on Pat Freiermuth, and they've got to take advantage of that matchup. Let's take a look at the video last year. They did a nice job really keeping Freiermuth, not stopping him completely, but did not get the big plays that he's used to getting, and that linebackers did a nice job. And again, they don't have the kind of linebackers. There's no Ryan Shazier out there. There's no Laurinaitis. They don't have those kind of linebackers, but we'll see. Again, 1 game, small sample size. The other thing that you have to deal with Ohio State is pass rush. Again, they don't know if they have the same kind of pass rush as they did last year across the board. Obviously, no Chase Young. But when you look at them, they're going to be wide pass rush. They're going to try and jam your wideouts in the slot and get DBs around here to take away any advantage you have. Going to be a real challenge for Penn State's wideouts. So let's take a look at the video from last year of how they want to get up the field and get to your quarterback. And if they can get to Sean Clifford consistently on Saturday, it'll be a real problem. Although I think Penn State's offensive line matches up against a young Ohio State defensive front pretty well. The other thing they're going to do is they're going to take away your easy throws. So again, they're going to leverage you inside, get up here, so when they do blitz their linebackers, you're not going to have that easy hot throw to make right away. They take that away, so they're going to force you to throw down the field. So let's take a look at the video from last year on this one where, again, they get their linebackers up in there, they make you protect, they push the pocket back in the quarterback's face, and when you try and make those the short throws, they're there to take advantage of it and keep you from getting big plays.
And as you talked about last week, we get to pick out a question every week, and we have our question from Grant Long here as he asked you, Jay, where does Penn State's O-line need to look first when it comes to linebackers in A, B, and C gap, and where does Ohio State usually place their best linebackers the majority of the time?
Well, let's go back to that last slide because it plays right into what we're going to talk about. What we have is, again, and I know why Grant's asking this, because Indiana was very active in blitzing linebackers in the A and B gaps. Ohio State will do that as well. But again, Ohio State, these guys are going to, with the wide ends, they're going to be playing inside. So the offensive line has got to be ready to come off blocks, come off double teams, and get to those linebackers further downfield than they would otherwise so that they can get the run game going north and south. It was a challenge last week, some with the run game, some, and obviously with the running backs being hurt. But we cannot rely on Clifford to carry the ball 17, 18 times a game. But again, it's going to be important that they anticipate those blitzes. Those linebacker blitzes inside are very, very difficult to pick up because suddenly your guard and your center have to make decisions much quicker. If they can get to that next level and get those linebackers, engage them downfield, then Penn State will have some success.
Grant, thank you for your question. As a reminder, always send in your questions for Jay, and you can win Hot Seat, his new book here. We wrap up the Blue White Tailgate when we come back.
All right, welcome back. We get to the world famous G block, which means the good, the bad, and me. All right. Oh, that was cruel. That was cruel. That was
wow.
Cruel. Production. I actually get the good this week. The good is going to be a roundabout to a bad here. Good to Tara Sullivan, reporter for the Boston Globe. She's the one that looked into why the UMass women's tennis team was put on probation by the NCAA. Stripped of an Atlantic 10 title, 3 years worth of victories. over a $252 phone jack that 2 student athletes didn't even know they had in the apartment. They got compensated for it, didn't know what it was for. Instead of saying, hey, can you pay back $126 a piece, right, and just end it, which is the common sense solution, they embarrassed them and made them think they're cheating.
That sounded kind of ugly to me.
So Tara Sullivan, great job reporting by the Boston Globe.
He's an angry elf.
I'm just, but you see,
his tongue is
like
bleeding.
252,
His
really?
tongue is bleeding. So I do have
these
the
kids
bad.
don't even know what a phone jack is.
No.
He's wound up. Didn't see that one coming.
No,
I really didn't. So I got the bad, and it's an obvious one with Wisconsin and Nebraska. And Graham Mertz, what a story, 20 of 21, fantastic debut for the Badgers, and then he tests positive for COVID and his backup. Now the game is just a no contest. It's just a bad situation to have to deal with.
Ugly is going to tail off on that, and I think people are going to be very uptight about why this game get canceled. They're taking care of Wisconsin. Look, we're dealing with young people's lives here, and let's just keep that in perspective. And we're dealing with health issues, so I hope everybody will just be patient. There's going to be other situations as the season goes on, and you know what? The games we get, we should just count as bonus. Well,
talk about the games we get. Let's get into the picks. All right, let's have a little bit of fun here with the picks. All right, and there is the standing so far.
Oh,
4-0.
Yeah,
Oh, man,
look at that. You. Take the early lead. Thank you, fellas.
Just for that, we're going to take you to Stillwater.
Well,
you get Texas, Oklahoma State.
I'm not saying our viewers should go right to their betting lines after seeing that 4-0, but I like Oklahoma State in this game. Texas really needs it. They need this game bad, but I think I'm going to go with the Cowboys. I think the Longhorns, it's just not their year for them.
Thanks, Todd. As we head to the Big 12, as K-State travels to Morgantown this weekend to take on the Mountaineers. I'm going with West Virginia here. They have one of the top defenses in the Big 12 and also in the country. So that's where I'm going to give them the edge over the 16th ranked K-State Wildcats. Jay, what do you got for us?
I've got Auburn, LSU. I like the Tigers.
Yeah, well done. Well played.
Okay, I'll go with the Bayou Bengals. those Tigers. No, I think LSU, they're starting to get some things on track. Auburn's had a couple of near misses. They look a little bit more disorganized, isn't the right word, but they're not quite a team that I think they should be.
I have Indiana Rutgers. The winner, at minimum, has a share of first place in the Big Ten East.
2020, in a nutshell.
Obviously, 30-some-odd new players at Rutgers, so forth. But look, I think Indiana's got some momentum. I'm going to pick Indiana to win that game. All right, time now for our Blaze Alexander Keys to the Game. Brought to you by our great title sponsor of the Blue White Tailgate, Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships. Mine's pretty simple. Instead of 10 penalties, how about 3 or 4? Instead of 3 turnovers, how about none or 1? And making field goals.
Shouldn't this be the key fobs to the game? I mean, this is 2020. Everything's electronic, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, either way.
I hope you don't have a phone jack at your house.
No, exactly. I think the important thing for Penn State is going to be to keep Justin Fields from beating him with his feet. Last year, that was the difference in the game. I thought Penn State played well in the secondary last year, made him make some plays. They can get some turnovers. Getting the turnovers turned that thing last year.
Which would lead to tackling of Justin Fields. I'm going to say it's the pass rush. They have got to get and make him uncomfortable, which will make him run, and they need to tackle him once they do that. But I think it's the pass rush. I think they got some really good guys to go after him, on the edges especially, and I think they could really make him uncomfortable.
All right, so we've set the table for a 7:30 kickoff in Beaver Stadium Saturday night. Thanks for joining us on the Blue White Tailgate presented by Blaze Alexander.